So we're at TogetherTec, i.e. Otherwise known as Game Bee Projects on Facebook, to discuss our monthly board meeting. We do it on the first Saturday of every month. And right now we're just going to talk about where our projects are, because that's how this started, the meta part of, right, of creating that generative space for projects. And that's what we've been doing, is coming and doing roundtables and helping each other. And to some degree, why am I so echoey? We've gotten, oh, I'm probably open in one of the other tabs. Am I?
It might be me as well.
Okay. I'm hearing double me's. That talking about what we can do to generate projects, what would help our projects the most, what would help new projects coming in. I know Facebook has become more of like a ghost town. Like people are leaving in droves. There's the new Game Bee space. But what can we do that's going to be most beneficial to our projects, because we're the ones putting in the time and energy? And also, if we weren't yet here, what would drive us to be here? How do we find more us's?
I can give a quick update on where I am on my projects.
Awesome. Yeah,
first of all, I don't know how many people know, I kind of quit my job for a while to work on kind of Game Bee-ish stuff, not official Game Bee, but stuff like that, and then also to find a way to feed myself and keep my wife happy, doing stuff that's important. And then an option is always to be contracting. So right now I do have contract work that is about 50% of my time, and that's enough to live off of at my lowest living level. So that lets me to dedicate 50% of my time towards kind of Game Bee ideas. And the other part of my time is actually working on projects that are still about helping people process information and stuff like that. So right now I'm helping a Swedish company use an online whiteboard kind of mind mapping system called Miro, and integrate it with Airtable with data. So it's for corporations, but it's helping corporations kind of serve their customers better. So I kind of throw it in the pot of doing all this good stuff. And then I'm trying to now find time to work on GoalieBot, which is my idea to help society. It's kind of, GoalieBot is a moderator for society that helps us talk through challenging issues. So I'm currently, I hired a marketing team to help me with the marketing, but I kind of had to step back from that because I don't have a real good description of how GoalieBot works yet. And they helped me with some of that, but some of it is I had to go back and think about it. So I've got a new kind of description of who GoalieBot is and how GoalieBot comes to its conclusions, and then how anybody in the world can influence GoalieBot and change Goalie's mind. So I'm going to be working on the wording for that. And then when we kind of talk a little bit later on how we support each other's projects, part of that will be, I think Goalie's at the place where it might be a project that people can come in and review and give their feedback, kind of like some people did do for WeCo a couple weeks ago. So I just want to say I appreciate the people who kind of signed in and gave some feedback on that project, which I had suggested in the Game Bee space. Yeah, so that's what I've been up to.
What was it you called that for WeCo? It was a Project Swarm? Is that what was that?
Yeah. I was thinking, that's what I was thinking, because it could be a barn raising, but I think barn raising works better for project raising because it is kind of like getting something started, but a swarm is just kind of like coming together and helping out. Yeah, that suggested term.
Yeah, I like it. I'd love to hear your vision of more. I saw that post and read through it, but me and processing information that is written, I was like, yeah, good job, Bentley. I don't know what we were doing, but like, yeah. And then let other people do the actual swarming part. But what your vision is for that, and what that would look like, how we would swarm people's projects. I think that could be something in addition to project raising for someone who's got that focus time in the hot seat, and then let's move it on to social media. Let's give them more eyes. Let's figure out how to do that piece. One of the other things, if we have time this hour, we were going to have a conversation with Dan from Physics Project on how to create investment in Game B projects, right? How to actually generate money, but he didn't understand. He thought we were talking about integrating our projects instead of actually like, how do we find money to put into Game B projects? And one of the ideas that was generated from a side conversation is more of like a Game B Dragon's Den, where like getting people to kind of submit their projects. Everyone who submits their project votes on which project they think is best. Maybe you don't vote for your own. And then I think if Game B itself put forward, like, hey, we don't necessarily have money, but there are people in Game B who have money. We think this is the best one. They're no way obligated to put money in it, but I think if we did swarm in that way, where it was like, hey, we all think this is the best chance right now. This is the most impactful one. The people with money who are Game B and Game B adjacent might be more willing to put their stuff in when we kind of collectively are like, this is the one. And so like, if that makes sense, I think that would be cool to talk about that. But I could also update on my project, but
yeah, why don't we go through the updates and then we could hit those other topics.
Solution raising is a little bit on hold in that I haven't been doing them weekly. I'm still looking to do one with some youth. In fact, I just had someone come by today and pick up some Lego, bring her dog over, and her son might be interested because their school, he's in like a leadership program with his school, and they're only in school like a couple hours a day, and they have their anxiety levels way lower, or his does anyway. But like, anyway, I think it might be a good, if it materializes. And I recently sent Brett Weinstein and Heather Hay an email that they've of course not responded to do a project raising on science. And I think that's more of the area I'm going into, is finding people who are already known in whatever space we're talking about to bring their eyeballs, right? To bring their platform with them, so people are more likely to watch it, because then one of the projects could potentially actually get funded. But also solution raising can have more eyes on it and bring it in. And so one of those things that I'm doing, which is a little bit adjacent to Dan in physics, is I'm looking to do a solution raising with Brandon. I want to say Brandon Hay, and that's not right because that's Heather's last name. But Brandon, who Jordan had a conversation with, Jordan Hall and Brandon had a conversation, and Brandon and I had a conversation recently, and I want to do a solution raising with the three of us. I don't yet know what it's on, something that's important to the three of us, and I have yet to reach out to Jordan, but Brandon has said yes to it, so I think there might be something there. And just looking for people who want to do it on an area that they're more interested in and can hopefully bring eyeballs, but I'm more about, would there be an audience to actually watch that conversation and enjoy watching it? Because it's not really, it's meant to be participated in. And so if it's going to, figuring out how to do both of them at the same time. And peer coaching is, I'm finishing up my second round this Wednesday. There was only 3 of us this time around. And I'm looking forward. The person who has been the most attentive is my friend, Daniel, who ended up joining the Game B space, and he's a VR person. And he also knows David, who I meet with every Wednesday, even though he's in Texas, and Daniel's local. And there's just something very generative about him showing up that isn't even anything to do with peer coaching. It's just emergent. He's an amazing human being. And it seems to be what it's drawing in is people who, it's like me having patience in the process and allowing it to unfold and not needing to, like, it already has a fear of missing out component in it. I don't need to make it be that. and yet my energy around it sometimes does get like that. Like, you need this, or in that space, instead of like, yeah, if it speaks to you, you'll come on board, and it is drawing in the right people. And so I'm just feeling more at peace and in faith that although this is less of a TogetherTec conversation, but like the universe is providing exactly what it needs in the right time, and I love it and I'm enjoying it. So that's where I am at the moment. Aid.
All right, that means me. So I was in a bit of a similar situation to Bentley, and just that I think, Game A sort of interrupted, and in my case, I got a new job at the start of the year. I kind of knew that for at least the first quarter, it was going to be especially busy as I was setting things up, and that did prove to be the case. I had tried a few different things to actually, weirdly, it sounds like both Bentley and I sort of tried in the first couple of months to set up some different marketing and like stuff like that. I reached out on Facebook, sort of put some feelers out and didn't hear anything back. I ended up just trying to hire somebody from Upwork, and there just didn't seem to be a lot of interest, possibly in sort of how I was able to write it up. The one person that responded didn't really seem to understand the questions I was asking, which didn't seem great to not be able to communicate with the person that's supposed to be doing your marketing. So I put a pause on that and decided to sort of go back to, okay, it'll probably be easier once I have the prototype. Kind of come to the realization that like I may need to, like the previous version of the prototype had some problems with actually, I guess, getting new versions published and stuff like that. And Bentley, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at any of the code. I didn't really.
I haven't looked at the code. I'm trying to think, has any changes happened since we last talked, or is it?
I don't think so. It's been like I think you saw the changes on the dev environment, and I've been wanting those to get moved to production. But I think he's just been busy with his new job as well.
Yeah.
And the main thing, like I get the feeling that I didn't really put any emphasis on documentation, so I'm kind of skeptical that another developer will just be able to step in and take it over. So part of me thinks I might need to sort of start again with an emphasis on document everything, knowing that at any point in time, the developer that starts it could leave. A new developer should be able to come in and spool up in a relatively decent amount of time.
Yeah, we could probably talk about that as one of the topics later on, rather than me diving into that right now. Documentation from your side may not be that important, though, because if they want to see what you wanted, any documentation you do about the way it is, they can just look at the user and a walkthrough with you. The more the documentation of how the code is would have to be done by the developer.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of more.
So yeah, if you choose to pay for that time, then yeah.
And I think because I get the feeling that this, because I also saw a couple of posts in the Game B projects group, or maybe it was just Game B, sort of people talking about hiring developers and other people with developer backgrounds being like, that's really hard to have somebody leave and come on to be able to hire for a developer for this. And I think that's going to be very common with these kinds of projects, where like unless you've actually got a company to do full on hiring full time, you'll see people come and go, whether you're paying or not.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's kind of par for the course.
Right.
It's kind of standard.
Cool. And then aside from that, I mean, I've been because NAC came out with a bunch of updates. I've been revisiting that and thinking that like even just having that version of the prototype with some decent demo information, I think could get it to the point like where it sort of shows what I'm after, because all of this has all just been to try and get a prototype that is actually worth showing off, and then at that point I think that makes more sense to bring on marketing and to have sort of the general content drip and actually showing people like, here's what we're going towards. If you want to participate, here's a Patreon, here's whatever else ends up helping with that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
So if we could transition to talking about project swarms real quick.
Sure.
So yeah, the general idea for anyone who didn't see the post, we have something called project raising, which is where someone has an idea for a project or a challenge they want to solve. It may even work best when it's just like, oh, here's something I want to fix in the world, rather than here's how I want to fix it. And then project swarm and then we all come together and help them, build that vision or realize it, and maybe give them some tools or suggestions on the way to help them bring it into existence. And then it'd be good, I thought, to have it to where you have a project and you're somewhere in the process of this project, in the realization or in the use of it, and you need some people to play with what you got or to give you feedback. And sometimes a lot of our tools are community-based tools. So having a group of people at the same time work on it and just try and use it, kind of like free beta testers really is what it is. Or just sometimes reading a document, which I guess we always really support in the Facebook page. If you have something saying, "Oh, this is what I want to do," we'll be happy to shoot your dreams down politely. So that's just the idea of a project storm, is someone can come in and request that we, as a group, we see who can kind of come together and beta test wherever they are and give them some feedback. So I posted that, and I don't think I even participated in it. I had promised, and I've forgotten now, even the name of the owner of the project, James Weir. I had promised him months ago, I guess back in February. Oh, it's not that long ago. It seemed like a long time. I said, yeah, I'll kind of make this suggestion. And so I finally put a post in Facebook, and I saw that some people went to his site and gave him some feedback. I haven't checked in with him to see how successful it was, and I've been really busy, so I wasn't as supportive, but I appreciate the people in the community that took some time. And I'll check with James and see what feedback he gave. But yeah, so I guess the only thing we really need to do is maybe just kind of write up a little post about what they are and see whether people would like to request kind of a swarm around their project.
I think it'd be cool if we had a feature one for the week or a feature one for the month, and had people. I know when we did project raising, we definitely had people who were interested in having their project raised, but they didn't necessarily come to other people's raisings. Since it sounds like this one doesn't require our time, as in we're not necessarily focusing an hour on it, although I'm always down to do a project raising for someone because I enjoy them. That, yeah, having that focus per week, right? And having people say, yes, we all want them, and then putting one out there, whichever one's kind of the most popular, and getting even feedback from them on how that process worked and what would have made it better.
Yeah, and maybe for both of these, we need to emphasize the give before you get philosophy, not a rule, but the idea is that you come in and swarm around someone else's project before you suggest yours. Now, we need a bootstrap, but we've all dedicated a lot. So if any of our projects are available, we could, just say, why don't you just to kind of show that you're in the community and a member, go to these old project swarms and go in and give some feedback or something, just to, I don't know a polite way to say, but get some reciprocity going.
And that does work, especially since they're still there, right? Like, even though we'll gotten old in a few weeks, you actually can go and swarm it, which also brings it to the top, right? If you go and give your feedback on it. And so, I think that's powerful. And it's also, I have found in the last few weeks, because we're not as involved, and even like the Game Bee admins on the regular page and stuff, is it's not generating the same buzz. So as people have been posting in there, I know before we were a little more strict on like, oh no, we're not posting about our projects. Maybe one time. I'm like, do it. Like, do it. Go ahead. Post about your project. Create some. So I don't know how we all feel about that, but I was just like, I'm not going to correct them on that one. Go ahead and post your event. Post your project, because we can deal with it later.
I mean, everyone when they come in definitely should post their project. And I think if it's like you have a monthly event sitting in, that's the only time, is like, okay, if you've done it 3 weeks in a row, it's kind of like, just tell people where to get to sign up for that content, and they can sign up for it. Is still kind of my feeling, but I haven't seen anyone abusing it recently, so I'm not concerned. And I mean, there was someone that posted an event, but it seemed like a one-off and stuff. So, that's kind of welcome.
Perfect. I might post about peer coaching this time coming up, because we're doing it every other Tuesday. We're holding our board meeting, and then we're having drop-in peer coaching, which is, my project.
I will take down your post. No, I'm just joking. Yeah.
How dare you?
I mean, anytime you're starting a new series or a new initiative, I think that's the time to post. It's just if we did just have, here's what I send out to my email list, and I'm also double posting to the group. Then
I don't have an email list, Bentley.
Yeah, I think it goes to your point, Bentley, around like don't post everything. If you want to say like, hey, something new is going on, if you're interested, go over here and check it out, and then you can sign up and follow and whatever. And if not, I'll stop posting here.
Yeah, and that does kind of bring up, we wanted to have kind of a directory somewhere, so where people could come in and look at the list of projects, and that's where you would have, oh, here's my email list, or here's our calendar of events and a grouped calendar event, which actually I know a group. There's a group called Catalyst, or a guy who has a project called Catalyst, and allows people to have a shared calendar between multiple projects. So he's just getting that together. He wrote it all up with no-code tools. So if anyone has the time or the inclination, we can do that. I don't know that we have a lot of people that are participating in the group right now that have regular events that they'd like to see on a calendar, but I'll just throw that out there. If someone's watching this later, just let us know and we can try and get that coordinated.
Awesome. Kylie and her husband are also working on an event space that will more facilitate those kind of things. So I don't know if it's the same as what Catalyst is doing, but it's more about getting people to events and facilitating the event itself rather than like finding out everything Jordan's at that you want to attend, or finding out everything that, and Kylie's much better explaining things than I am.
And the Catalyst project also has like, these are sub projects, and so it is a community of communities. So that's something that if the Game Bee project has, I think because we've been so busy, has been kind of and because of the Facebook and kind of change, it hasn't been as lively, but that's something that if people are interested about building that directory of people and of projects, also communicate about that, not just a calendar. Let me know, or post in the group, and we can work with Catalyst or any other project that people know about.
Yeah,
there's several projects working on this kind of community directory thing. It's a much harder problem than it seems. You think that'd be a solved problem by now, but
you think so? And that might be fun for us to keep a list of, is like the more meta problems that like we know need to be worked on. Would be great if somebody took it on and worked on it, but like, let's have a way so everyone isn't coming in being like, oh, I have an idea, let's do this, and then reinventing the wheel every single time, right? Like, oh, put your idea in this one, put your idea on this one. We've already done that. You take the ideas that have already been brought together and put them in the next one. Or maybe that is just what we do again and again and again, is keep putting in our projects, because I learn something every time I put mine in. But I know it's not going anywhere, so I'm less likely to put it in.
Are y'all familiar with Vincent Arena? He's been in Game Bee a little bit, but I don't know if he participated in
I know I've seen the name.
Okay.
I hosted some clubhouses with him.
Yeah, so he's the one doing Catalyst, and he's also building a list of problems.
Awesome.
So he's just exactly in the same mind space we are. So yeah, I might shoot him a link to this video and get his feedback.
He seems like someone who could actually follow through on that in a way that I'm not going to be.
He's doing some amazing work.
Mm-hmm. And it does feel like the Game Bee space. It's funny because people keep coming to it, and it does, like, I my heart goes out to them because they're like, yeah, Game Bee, and they're like, there's nothing going on. I'm like, oh, there's too much going on adjacent to it. It's like, there used to be more things you can invite people to that were Game Bee specific, but now those things are kind of like the Stoa and Rebel Wisdom and Future Thinkers, as well as like conversations that are weekly that have materialized, but they're not inviting new people, right? Like, I know people, my Wednesday group and other ones that are adjacent, they're like an artists group and certain things that are like, they're not designed to have new people come, but I wish they would inspire another group, right? Like, you're right, you can't come to my friend's day, but you can start your own. They're amazing. And you know, this is an enjoyable thing that people can come to, but this only works for certain type of people, right, who have a project and want to have these conversations that are more about meta projects, the project of projects.
Yep. So what was the other stuff on our list?
We're talking about the funding, the Dragon's Den, if we want to generate that, or Adriel, I think also, or I think it was coding. Maybe you guys, I don't know. I don't know if my brain can sit through coding at the moment, but
yeah, we might save that part for last.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
So for the Dragon's Den idea, so let me reiterate it, Jubilee, and see if I got it. Is that it's the idea of kind of having doing something similar to Dragon's Den, or what's the American version? Anyways,
Shark Tank.
yeah, Shark Tank, and even though we wouldn't have the money or to invest, it would be kind of a showcase. And now, what makes me think about that is there's that one kind of podcast that you were on, Jubilee, and I can't remember the name of it, where they gave an actual rating of
Upgrading Society.
Yeah, Upgrading Society. And I don't think they've done one recently. I don't know if they got sidetracked by COVID.
I don't know. I haven't kept up to date, but
So I was wondering, maybe we should talk to them and tell them we're going to steal their rating system and give them credit, because that seems like perfect for this sort of thing too, right? And have a lower quality kind of shooting from the hip version of what they're doing, focused on Game B. Yeah, and I don't know about getting you talked about having it to, you know, like showing, oh, this may be the best one for investment. I don't know if we have enough projects to. I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of ideas, but before you invest some money, it kind of needs to be a step past that, maybe. I don't know. Those are my feelings. It'd be hard to have enough content to actually do a ranking. But
yeah, I like somewhat, if they're okay with it, co-opting the ranking system and possibly adding in, I don't remember what theirs is. It's like clarity, possibility, although that's not the word they use, and maybe how much work you've done on it already. Something about like, is it investor ready? Is it actually going to be like, what is the outcome? And, you know, we probably want that to be the ones that actually get voted to the top, but having that way that everyone could vote on each other's and score them 1 to 10 or red to purple or whatever code we want to use for that. But the idea being that like, we're not necessarily the dragons or the sharks, but that we can be that for each other in a very Game B way. And then whatever one emerges is the best. I just find there's a lot of people who come into Game B and Game B projects that are like, how dare Jordan Hall and Jim Rutt and them have like money and connections and not put all of their ideas and all this stuff into my project. It's like, right, but you're not the only one. And there's people who have more powerful projects. And so to actually support each other to get that rise to the top of like what we think is the most powerful, what we think, and I think Swarm would actually help with that immensely, more about like who's involved, who's doing this, and as well as this other piece of like, we're going to collectively get behind 1 to 3 of these, right? And say, hey, here's the most powerful solution we found. Here's how much funding they need. There's maybe someone in Game B who can fund it. And I feel like the people with the money would be more likely to take a second look at those things if we did all put our clouds behind it, right? Like, hey, this is the most promising one that isn't necessarily Game B itself, right? It's not a proto B. It's not. It might be, but like it's. Ooh, yeah, that one's a cool idea. Like, I really like James Jones's cube spawn. I've liked it since I heard about it, you know, year and a half ago, and like which one of the sense-making ones, we could possibly have categories of like what's the most promising in this, and people who are the dragons, right, are the people with actual money, could be putting that towards, they could pick which ones they want, if they care about sense-making, right, or they care about tech, or they care about, I can't think of categories, my brain isn't on at the moment. But.
yeah.
So the one thing that strikes me for talking about a Dragon's Den style thing is like if you go on Dragon's Den or Shark Tank or whatever, the idea is your project's supposed to be or like your business is supposed to be ready for it, and you kind of get your one shot. I'm not sure how well that would work for this, but it feels like it sort of is one of the possible endpoints for project raising, solution raising, like having an ecosystem of, where you have somebody bring their project and they have multiple spots to shop it around. There might be a project raising. Maybe there's almost like when I was talking about like the co-opetition councils, that seems like it would kind of work well with the peer coaching, but like project peer coaching. So like me and Bentley and possibly Dan and Radek and people who have sort of sense-making style things, with the idea that like, no, we're all staying on our own projects, but we're approaching it from like, oh, okay, if Bentley and I are trying to solve the same issue and it's, we're not in competition with each other, helping it sort of, push each other to like, oh, well, did you take this step? And I actually respond quite well to that part of like having a regular meeting. I'm like, oh, I gotta get stuff done because I haven't done anything since the last meeting. It gives a bit of that push, at least to people like me. And it seems like it's sort of this full, what we're sort of planning on this being all along, which is like a community of project owners, but sort of starting to merge the different parts together and make them more cohesive. Like, here's what you can do as a project owner. You've got your project raising, you've got your peer coaching, and then one of the possible outputs of that might be if enough people or the right people, show interest, or you somehow get it to a certain scoring threshold, then we have like the Dragon's Den style session where it's a bit more like, I don't want to say cutthroat, but like a bit more like, are you ready to do this yet? Is this ready for investment? And then sort of the conversations around, what does investment mean to you? Are you willing to give stuff up? Is there actually a profit center? Is this sheerly donation driven? And then like, what are your next steps? But I don't think you start there. I think that's like, we have this full.
I'm hearing like a crowd or peer incubator. Like I like the co-opetition councils and the idea of having that be an option and people to put in what their projects are and do they want to do that? Do they want to meet with other people? And then those people can kind of figure out a time that works for them and a frequency, right? I think most of us can't really do can't do weekly at this point. We're busy, but like monthly and doing it that way. And then working through maybe even having a deadline of these Dragon Den thingies every quarter or every half a year. So that you have a presentation, like that's kind of almost what you could even be working through with the co-opetition, right? Is like to create that presentation to get it ready for, we're looking for investment, right? Because there's the incubator project, like there's a way to come together and work on it if it's your own individual one. There's ways to create it with solution raising if you have a problem and you want to create a solution. There's peer coaching if you want to improve your own life, which is what that one is more focused on. And having there be these deadlines of like, and then we're going to have a presentation that's going to, that people can have 15 minutes, do their pitch online, of course, right? With a slide presentation or something else. It's like, this is, and then we can send that to the dragons, right? Send that to people who actually have money and be like, Game B has gotten behind this. And here are the ones that we actually support, right? Like we have maybe 2 or 3 hours of them. And we vote and pick the top 2 or 3 and send that out to the people with money who want to be on that.
Yeah, and maybe we could also just do a crowdfunding campaign as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be.
I don't know how successful that would be, but
that does give another thing to talk about in the, like, if you make a Kickstarter, you're like, hey, this project, it's the winner or it's a semi-finalist of the Game B project thing, and then you can have a link to that. You're like, oh, there's a ton of content here. There's people talking about it. Like, oh, this actually does seem to mean something. It's not just somebody making something up. Like, if we actually went through the project raisings and possibly like the co-op councils and everything, we could end up with hundreds of videos. And I would say you probably keep them all on the TogetherTec channel and then tag people appropriately so that like, hey, here's all the videos for Reason Score. So Bentley can then link to that from wherever he wants to and says, hey, if he puts out a Kickstarter, here's, it's a finalist or the winner or whatever happens, and here's a link to sort of all the stuff if you want to go dig deeper on that. Which is not to say that everyone is going to go watch 20 hours of video, but if they see 20 hours of videos available, they're like, oh, wow, this guy's, all right, he's got his stuff together. Like, it's not some Kickstarters, you're like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, I like the idea of having the presentations be individual videos that we upload to TogetherTec, and then have them on one list so people can go and watch them. And then possibly having that quarterly report, that quarterly Dragon's Den be something that's more along the lines of upgrading society's score, and like having the conversations with the people there of like, yes, we've watched, whoever's watched their presentation, you don't have to sit through it again, having them give a quick elevator pitch, then asking those questions that would have come up during the presentation, and giving grades, and then picking the best one, and then sending the presentation, or having that person then do a new presentation with that in mind, that now you've won. And now what are you going to put forward that's maybe a 5-minute presentation and incorporates this stuff.
And another project that'll be kind of ready for both a Project Swarm and, potentially kind of a Dragon Den thing would be Relish. And I forgot the...
Daniel?
Yeah, Daniel. Yeah. So I don't know what other projects, if we'd had any new come in that I missed, I've been kind of absent.
I mean, yeah, when I've been letting people in, it's about 50-50 people who are either looking for projects to work on or have a project, but I haven't seen any that like jumpstart, and that might be something we want to do too, is post, hey, what's your project? It's like, I know we haven't been necessarily doing the project updates, which have been, I think we're fairly popular, of like, where have you been?
Yeah, and that's my fault.
What have you been busy with, Bentley? Like, what has Texas been up to? Like, what do you have going on in the world?
Just a winter storm that shut the state down for a week. Yeah, one of the challenges with that is before I could just go to Facebook and copy and paste from last time. And it's really easy to add a GIF because I kind of like that. But now I kind of have to post it in 2 places, and the new GameBee space is a little clunkier to do all that, and I have to do it twice now. So when I get ready to do it, so I was like, oh, I don't have time for this right now, and then it's a week later, right? So I don't know if we want to start abandoning the Facebook group and just doing everything in the GameBee space, or not, just based on limitations of time. What do y'all think?
How active has the other site been? Like, how many posts are there? How many people actually
Not
using
very.
it?
I mean, I think we still have, we have a lot of people in the Facebook group that are not participating. So we should really count participants, but actually I don't have a real good feel. Yeah, I kind of think the responsible thing would be to keep dual posting for a while, but
I mean, they both have their pros and cons, right? The Mighty Network is like GameBee's site, and that would be great if we were on there using it. But I've been on there, and it doesn't draw in your attention in the same way. I have to actually go to the groups. I post my event in there and other places, and the event gets more traction actually in that space. But the posts don't, because it's not generated in that way, and people are still on Facebook. And if we're interacting with posts, it's going to come up in their newsfeed more often and bring them in. And so I think Facebook is more generative for us, and we can't really fix the Mighty Network's problem ourselves because it's not ours. And, even if it was, like, I don't think Jim Rat can fix it either. I don't think that's actually possible, because you have to be able to bring people over. And I mean, maybe we could do a Project Swarm on the Mighty Network's site itself of like, hey, how do we improve this? How do we make it so it's somewhere you want to spend time?
that's a really good idea.
But right now, if you only have time to post it on one place, I say on Facebook at the moment, unless the other one is getting traction, I'm just not seeing it. If there's people actually, I think there was a few times it was posted on there, and there was definitely a few people who, and it seems to be different people.
Yeah.
people aren't copy and pasting their update in both places, which is also possible. We could be stating more so in the Facebook group than the other way around, right? Like in the Facebook group, hey, and just so you know, we're also having this conversation there, and get them to go and copy and paste it there, right? And if they're doing their update, but not the other way around. They don't need to get from
And one of the times I just turned off comments on that post and said, go post there. So it depends on how draconian you want to be.
Mhm. And I don't think we want to do that because we want it to come up in their news feed. So we want them to post there so that it's drawing them into Facebook, and people who do have more of an initiative, that's the word I'm looking for, will copy and paste their update onto Mighty Networks if they're part of it.
Yeah, so I think the GameB post from, it says 1 week ago. Well, no, that is commented on 1 week ago. When did I make the post? 2 weeks ago in the GameB group. And there are 2 people other than me on it.
Yeah, I think part of it also goes back to a part of the conversation earlier where, like, because it's slower, it's just going to get even slower and slower and slower. That's, I guess, one of the nice things about doing something like I forget the term Jubilee used, but like trying to sort of have multiple spots for projects to go and actually having the page be a bit busier if we're sort of posting about those posts. Like, hey, here's the schedule for this, here's the deadline for the Dragon's Den. I think that would start to get, like, it's a bit more action driven. I know a lot of the posts I see, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Either I don't really have something to post because the question I think specifically applies to me and or my projects. And I think because it's gotten slower, Facebook has just stopped showing me as much.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the same post in Facebook just had Daniel on there. So we had 2 people in the GameB space and 1 in in the Mighty Networks and 1 in Facebook. Interesting.
Also, I don't know where new people are coming, right? Like new people who come into the GameB Facebook group, the main one, understandably, and shouldn't, like, they're not being brought into the individual groups anymore like they were when that was our main source. The only 2 that are really generative are ours, the projects and community anyway. A lot of the other ones dissipated fairly quickly. But having somewhere to direct people that's like, hey, here's what we're doing, right? Here's what projects is doing. And I think that can be done in Facebook and in Mighty Networks, but doing it in a way that it's pretty are we clear? Pretty clear on what we're offering, right? The project swarms and here. And if like one post, which we know I can't do, but like one document of like, here's what we offer and here's where you find it. You know, that we do the project updates and we do this and we do that. And if anyone feels called to do that at any point, then maybe it'll get generated. Otherwise, I will just put it out in the universe and the universe will provide it.
Yeah, I think it's time to update the introduction to GameB projects with pointing at the new space and adding swarms. Yeah, so we probably need to update that. Maybe new dates for meetings like this and stuff.
There is a one of the things that the physics project, Dan's project, has managed to do is actually draw people in who believe in it, and people who are really just looking for something that don't actually know about GameB and don't actually know about the stuff. Like, they have a marketer, they have someone who's writing like a weekly blog update and stuff, and one of those people is looking for a job. He's looking to make, I think, like $100 a month, doing graphic design or doing something that's more long writing or that kind of thing. He's out of Nigeria, and I mentioned that I was like, I don't got anything for you, but maybe something in this space would. He seems to be gung-ho and doing stuff for their project and stuff. So I think, and there's a few people that are like that are adjacent to it, that, like, unlike the other 2 projects that I'm critical on, I'm like, this isn't going anywhere. Theirs weirdly has traction in, like, that people do believe in it, but not the people. It's a weird combination of, and I'm like, it's interesting. But I think that offering him a way to be useful and get paid for it, though. I mean, he lives in a different situation.
$100 a month is pretty cheap.
I don't know. He wants me to for solution raising. I was like, solution raising's not looking to pay someone. That's not what I'm doing.
Right.
But finding a way that's not. I mean, I'm not saying he's doing full-time work for $100 a month or anything.
Right.
But he's a
hours.
lawyer in Nigeria, and so having that be
Yeah, I mean,
something that he can do.
Well,
depending what. Go ahead, Ben.
I was just gonna say, can you get me in touch with him?
Yeah.
Because especially if he's a lawyer, I'm looking for someone to gather information and organize these debates. And a lawyer does debating for a job. So
yeah, fair enough.
It's very, very true. Very true. I didn't think of that. Because I'm like, what do you have to offer? I was like, graphic design. Okay, I'll mention graphic design. But that's a very good point.
Yeah, and also I could use some graphic design with Golibot. So, I mean, it most likely it won't work out for the graphic design because I have very specific visual needs, and it depends on whether he can do that type of work. But it's worth looking into. So yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, if we can get more of that kind of stuff going on in there, like that's sort of one of the main things I'm after now. Is I'm fine if I, and I kind of actually prefer if I had, pay somebody a bit to do the various things like marketing and of course coding and stuff like that. But really, I want to make sure that it's somebody who's interested in the topic. Like that's part of where I think my Upwork post failed was I didn't just want any marketer because, yeah, I mean, I think people are used to reading regular marketing speak and are kind of numb to it now. And it comes from a very different place. If you actually you like the idea, you believe in that topic, and like you'll also be more knowledgeable on like side related things and be able to add in your 2 cents. I'm guessing that's what a lot of our projects would want to have people brought on, whether they're paying for them or not.
One of the challenges I had with hiring a marketing group was that, first of all, my idea is half-baked, but also that it doesn't fit into, it's very far outside the standard categories of business. A lot of times a business is providing a specific value, and it's just finding a way to clearly express that. And that these ideas are so far outside of the norm that they're not used to stepping back and rethinking how they can communicate something. So that's the challenges I've had. So it's almost like a branding issue more than a marketing, but still it's so outside. It really needs to be like someone who's doing, well, like I was going to say branding for nonprofits, but nonprofits it's often like, oh, help these children that are starving, right? So, yeah, it'd be interesting if we could actually find a marketing agency that's used to taking oddball ideas and figuring out how to clarify the message and then communicate it.
Totally. And even like Game B company, right? Like a company that kind of could be making a profit, but that's not why it exists. Like, I think that in a lot of cases, standard marketing would be confused with working in a project like that, where standard marketing for either a nonprofit or a for-profit business is your job is to bring in money, or like, have people enter the funnel so that salespeople can take over, or whatever that means in that case. But like, that's really what it's all about. In a lot of our cases, it's just like sort of building either brand or project awareness, or like kind of trying to position yourself and like have people understand what you're doing. Because I think for almost all of our projects, there's a big bridge to gap in between what the regular, like if somebody asks me what wiki election is, I'm like, oh, okay, here we go, right? Like, do you have 10 minutes? And yeah, I think that's one of the key things that sort of marketing person would need to be able to help with, is like being able to distill our like passionate rambling about a topic into like, here's what the average person can understand.
Yeah.
Like to get them to the point where like, oh, I see what you're trying to do. And I didn't have to spend 30 minutes watching. I mean, even 30 minutes is probably a bit light for some of the amount of content and explanations and back and forth and stuff.
And I know that branding people do take like startup ideas, and then they're able to focus it down from a paragraph or several paragraphs down to a sentence or a catchphrase. But it's even hard. What we're doing is even harder for them because it's one step further removed than a new startup idea.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, how do you make money again? It's like, we don't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just
How
like,
we make money is we take your content and we show it to people and hope that those people give us money.
and for some of us, it's just like, well, we're anti-capitalism, and they're just like,
Yeah, it almost sounds like maybe a 99 Designs thing, and then you take like the winners of. Although I'm not
oh
not
my
even sure
God.
what that project would look like, but something like that, like
Yeah.
where it's you start with something small and you're like, can you take this, a page of me rambling and turn it into something digestible?
Yeah.
And then like keep it short because it's A99 Designs, and honestly, I don't understand why some of the designers use that site because like you make a cool logo and they're like, nope, not going to use it. Well, now it's why'd you do all that work?
Yeah, I did do a 99 Designs for the design of Golibot, and some people did like 10 poses of this robot design, and I'm like, how much? I mean, I know they were quick, so it
Yes,
probably didn't take that much long because they're used to it, but I was surprised the amount of effort people put into it, and I could only choose one.
yeah, that's what's so weird about that. And some you're like, there's 5 that are great, and some you're like, they're all terrible. But some you're like, there's a lot of good work here.
And some people didn't read the posting or just posted something they heard robot and they said, oh, here's a robot. It's like, no, it's supposed to be have this look to it, and it's like an evil robot, and it's like, it's supposed to be childlike. So
The picture of Bender from Futurama. Okay, you're not.
yeah, right.
You're not getting it.
Not really understanding. Although the robot I have ended up looking kind of like a baby Bender.
Okay.
I wonder if we have enough people in Game B projects specifically who have branding or marketing experience, and they're in Game B. They want Game B, and possibly themselves don't quite know how to marry those two. We're very Game B, and we're like branding and marketing. It'll figure itself out. They already have the branding and marketing, and they don't quite necessarily know Game B. And I think that maybe even posting and asking for those kind of things. One of the other people I got in touch with through that other project is also he's doing their marketing, and so both their marketing and their writing and I'm like, okay, why do you all believe in this thing? I don't see it because they can't answer questions, but they do, and I love that. This is a different field than the other two I'm critical on, where I'm like, there's something
It's
here.
like,
that's why I'm still here.
it's a very Game A approach to like a kind of Game B project.
Well, I mean, Game B, you still need to tell a good story to entice the human mind, but it's not quite as manipulative, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe I think that could be one of the potential types of swarms is help me take this expression of my idea and help me explain it. So I'm going to explain it to you, and y'all come back and rephrase it in your own wording. And then as a group, we workshop the description.
Yeah.
So, and actually, I'm almost ready for that. I have like 2 or 3 versions of the Gullybot homepage and a debate that I think I'm about to post and suggest a swarm. And then people can just go on. And the way I'm going to do it, I think, is Google Docs with commenting turned on. So people can just go in and highlight stuff and comment. And then I'll make changes. And I don't know. I think you can duplicate it. So if you really want to like completely change it up, you can copy and paste it and put a link, right? So I'll suggest all that. So maybe that'll be the next swarm. And I don't feel bad about suggesting my own project because I already suggested someone else's.
Plus, I like the idea of that kind of swarm that having, and so we're also like, there's the meta swarm, right? Of like, what kind of swarms, and having someone help you create the marketing, like create the elevator pitch, create the way of like, technically this is what it does, but what is the benefit? What is the, emotional part? Like, what is the actual thing that's going to get people involved? And I think together we could do that because there's enough minds that are the more artistic and more, branding focused. And those aren't necessarily our minds.
And maybe we should also consider posting these swarms. And I don't know, Jubilee, if you've been doing this for the raisings and stuff, but posting them in the main Game B group time to time.
Yeah,
'Cause I think
especially
that's
when
what
we
good
figure.
people-
Yeah, I agree. There's enough people there and enough reason. And again, if Game B Projects has said this is the one we're swarming this week, I think posting that in Game B is unless we hear otherwise. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
one of the admins posts his podcast every week, right? Like that are or aren't Game B adjacent. I don't know. I don't listen to them, and it's not necessarily. I don't think we're anti-spam there if it's something that's Game B adjacent at all. If Future Thinkers and Stoa wanted to, they don't need to, right? They would probably be able to post in there. Considering the stuff that does post that is not quite, I think that it would be.
Yeah, I think part of what came out in the conversation with PhysX and that is that like in the Game B Projects group, it's kind of like a captain's club where, you know, it's like a bar specifically for captains of ships. It's like you wouldn't go there to look for crew. And that I think is a part of the challenge with Game B Projects is some people are like, some people want to go there to help, but then it's okay, how do I pick? How do I know which all the projects are out there, et cetera? If you sort of like tried to keep Game B Projects as more of the captain's club, as people, you know, talking about, hey, what are you doing on your project and what are you doing here? Oh, and what do we all need help with? Things like most of the people I think that have projects are kind of nerdy non-marketing people. And if you were to able, you know, to say, hey, who all needs help with marketing, and as a subset, who can actually pay a bit for it? Okay, then if we can go together and say, hey, me and Bentley and 4 other people need somebody who, you know, has some marketing and branding and that sort of stuff. And then, you know, we'd probably go do like something like a 99 Designs Together, unless we were just able to find someone in the, like just possibly the Game B group, but sort of actually put out a more specific call. Because I think we've sort of made general calls like, hey, let's start a list of who has what skills and let's do this. Which is something like who has marketing and branding skills and doesn't have a project that, you know, is taking up their time and would like to help other projects, possibly for some money.
And I do think what you're suggesting, that captain's club and the crewing, if we can steer people towards where they can crew, both for pay and also just like even the swarming and stuff, right? That's a more of a call to action of like how I could actually help your project without needing to like take, you know what I mean, take a position and actually know if I can work with you and know all of that. It's like, oh, that's gonna both get people who are looking for projects and are looking to get involved a way to get involved, as well as like bring those crew out and actually focusing on not just, hey, what are your skill set, but we need marketing and branding.
Yeah.
We need writing. We need, you know, this kind of thing. And there's people in Game B that absolutely need money, especially right now, right?
Totally.
And are the ones who could be paid, you know, for them to be able to find a Game B project and they were getting paid $15, $20 an hour to do something that would, you know, like that would be omni-win for everyone.
Well, I think what's cool is like if we start, you know, with me and Bentley and maybe a couple other people and sort of use that as a project to like, can we find somebody who's really good that understands it? If we find someone that like can help Bentley and I with some marketing and branding and like, you know, and possibly be like, have you guys thought about this? Like this is, oh, wow, I didn't think about that, but that totally makes sense. Hopefully after a month or two, they're relatively done with us. And like they might turn out the occasional piece of content, but like they've set us on a path. Then we're like, hey, if you guys like the changes that you saw to Reason Score and Wiki Election, as far as like, if you think our marketing is better, here's who did it, get in touch.
Yeah.
All of a sudden that person has like, oh, now I've got 100 people beating down my door for project work. All right, this is a bit of a difference from where I was at a month or two ago.
Yeah, I think everyone looking for work in Game B would rather spend that time working on Game B type projects. They want to make a difference in the world. That's why they're in Game B, right? They're not there to sling their other business. That isn't. It's like to figure out how we fix our lives together, how we fix the world together. And so getting people who have those skills and can make that paycheck from that space is going to be more generative for them and us, our projects.
And as project owners, like if I just wanted to hire a marketing person, I can do that on Upwork in 5 minutes. But it's like, if you have had a problem hiring, it's probably because you want someone that's either knowledgeable in a certain area, like that's adjacent, and or interested in the kind of Game B thing that might not, that I think most marketers would probably have a, you know, some confusion around. So then it's solving it like for both sides. They get their project work, that's something that hopefully they care about and can make some money, and we can find someone like, yes, that's what I've been looking for, somebody who has, you know, some marketing and branding chops, who actually like is interested in this space, and like, I'm not going to have to keep explaining, no, we're not a profit motivated company, like it's not the same thing.
Yeah. And I think there's room for that. Once they have that, once they are like, okay, it's not the regular marketing and branding, they can develop that portfolio, then the next project's know where to go. Yeah, I love it.
Yep. And then I think given like sort of the cooperative nature, it would be all about, hey, thanks for helping with this site. Now, everywhere that it makes sense, I'm going to say who helped there. And it might be like on the wiki election page, which like, because I just sort of took a standard template, like there's an about us, but it's just me. So part of it might end up being like changing it from the typical about us, where it's like staff, and it's like about us are all the people who have actually had some kind of a contribution to this. Even if you just came on as a marketing person for 2 months, help sort of, you know, set the course, and then possibly even, you know, wrote some instructions for a regular marketer to be able to take it from there. I want to put that person on the site to be like, hey, if you like this and you're interested in this sort of thing, here's who helped.
Yeah, and I don't know if we can get some of the marketers to participate, but you know, we could have the prizes for the then be like me give a technical review and the marketers give a marketing thing, and stuff like that. You know, so some people that have some resources, and just, you know, it could be as low as 4 hours. You know, people will still find a lot of, or an hour. You know, people still find a lot of value in that. Not that we need to probably bribe people with prizes, because, you know, they want to talk about their projects anyways. But
I think they'll usually be doing it for an outcome of some sort. Look, that they're talking about their projects to hopefully move it forward. And honestly, if you were somebody that was knowledgeable and in the space, and you found a project like that didn't have money, but you're like, I really like the sound of that, you might do it for free. And then somebody else, you're like, yeah, you know, it's a bit more complicated, or there aren't as many people chomping at the bit to do it, I'm willing to pay for it. And to sort of have that culture of both are fine, but of course it's up to the person doing the work if they want to work for free or for money.
I think we're almost out of time, but maybe we should think of a name for that Dragon's Den idea. I don't know what to call it. Is it a competition? Co-opetition?
Beehive? I don't know.
Anyways, be thinking about that. We can post in the Facebook group. But we should probably close up the meeting.
Yeah. Is our next TogetherTec meeting going to be in a month, in May, the first Saturday of May? Or are we wanting to meet sooner than that, like in 2 weeks, to talk again? I'm good with either.
I'm okay with waiting a month. We can chat to the Facebook and everything on individual things, and then if someone comes up with a project raising, or a project problem solution raising, or a project swarm, then we'd be happy to use that 2 weeks from now. So just put the call out to the universe.
All right, sounds good. So otherwise we will be doing basically this in a month, figuring out is the next conversation, because this is what we enjoy doing.
Fun, right? Right. No one's paying us for this, so we'll do what we want.
Exactly.
Julie, if you are interested in doing a session, I wouldn't mind having one of these possibly at the regular time, where we sort of like, we list all of the different components, like the solution raising and project raising and the project, you know, swarm and all the stuff, and sort of talk about how we might be able to make like a single roadmap for where a project can go.
Okay.
And sort of see like how they all tie together, because I think there's like a lot of spots that could connect it here.
I think if you make an event, like a StreamYard posting and an event for that, you and I will do it if no one else shows up. And of course, Bentley, you're invited, but you don't have to come.
Yeah.
And like that, what we're looking to do is more of the visualization side, and that it's open, right? Come help us figure out what path the projects can take. We might get more actual people show up and do it.
Yeah, and we might even do like a two-parter, right? Like the first time it'll probably just be me and you, unless Bentley also shows up. And then the outcome of that, like if they sort of see like, oh, here's a canvas and they're dragging things around and talking about each individual thing in the project, you're like, oh, that's a lot more like in the weeds trying to do stuff. And that might kick, oh yeah, I want to partake in the next one to get a bit more input.
Right. Sounds good. I'm down with that.
And then hopefully we'll have like an actual roadmap to talk about on the first one of these in May.
All right. Awesome.
Cool.
Bye, YouTube and Facebook. See you next month or 2 weeks. 2 weeks.